Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the GreenZone Podcast for our season two, episode seven. This week here on October the 17th, 2024. From the College of St. Scholastica's Media Studio, I'm Cameron Green, the host of this podcast. Happy to be with you here today. Today, I want to go over what we're going to talk about. I want to start over about the quarterback controversy that's brewing in Pittsburgh between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. My kind of thoughts on that. Maybe some other quarterback carousels too as we speak. I kind of want to go over the NFL trade deadline or trades that have already happened, trades that are going to happen, and what could possibly be brewing there as that comes to a forefront. And our weekly pig segment of course will be coming up here. I had a great week last week in the picks, so just want to toot my own horn. We'll keep going to that here. But I want to start off in Pittsburgh, where the Jets and the Steelers will be taking off this week in Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh. And it appears that Pittsburgh's got a new quarterback, and that's, of course, Russell Wilson, returning from his injury after missing the opening 5, 6 games of the season. Um, I don't really think this is a good idea for Pittsburgh to do this right now. Justin Fields has got you to a 4-2 spot. Maybe hasn't done all that much passing with the football, but he hasn't really done anything to say he is losing us games hand over hand and that he is a problem for us. I don't really understand the situation. I know that Russell Wilson is what you would think is a Hall of Fame bound quarterback. I know the last few years haven't said that, but I feel like the first 10 years of his career, the guy's a Hall of Fame quarterback or Hall of Fame talent. But I really do think that switching it up here now at this point in the year is going to hurt Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh is kind of in that spot right now where they're in a weird in between. Like, they're better than Cleveland, they're better than Cincinnati right now. But Baltimore is kind of turning the tide here. They look to be the best team in the North, which a lot of people thought they were already to begin with. Not really a big surprise. If you asked anyone at the beginning of the season that Baltimore would be the top team, not really a big surprise. But I think when you're Russell Wilson now, you're making deep, dirt cheap money for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's really a low buy for them. They have really no reason to really worry about. If Russ underperforms, fine, we'll flip the switch. We'll go back to Justin, and we'll do with that. And I get where Pittsburgh's coming from in a sense because I know that they want to maybe maximize this opportunity right now because you have two quarterbacks that are worth less than $8 million right now as you speak. So I think you know that Justin Fields is available after the season for you to come back and bring him back. But you want to leave this door open to see if Russell Wilson's got anything left in the tank for I think it's $2 million, with Denver's pretty much paying the rest of the contract, the buyout for them. But the $2 million that it is, you want to see what kind of value can you get from a guy at $2 million. I mean, I kind of understand that. I think if I was a GM or a coach of a team and you have a Hall of Fame caliber player at a dirt cheap contract, you also would want to see what you have or what kind of gas he has left in the tank. But at the same time, I think if you're Pittsburgh, you're not necessarily in a panic spot right now because like I mentioned, Cleveland's worse than you. Cincinnati's worse than you only by maybe a game or two. But it's kind of a fragile point of your season because you don't really know where you stand with the other teams in the AFC. Um, I originally had, I think, three teams going to the playoffs in the AFC East: Dolphins, the Bills, and the Jets. Well, that might only be one team. You look at the AFC West, Kansas City is superior, but the Chargers are playing well right now. Denver's surprisingly playing well. They're not too far out from where Pittsburgh is. You look at the AFC South, Tennessee's not good, Jacksonville's not good, Indy's and Houston's great. But there's an opening for some other teams to maybe come in and make that move into a wild card spot where Pittsburgh wants to be. So they must feel comfortable enough that they can make this switch and not feel like they're going to lose a step. But if you're asking me, I don't really think this is the right move. I thought it was sort of been Justin Fields' job all along. I mean, even if Russell Wilson's your guy, 35-year-old quarterback, 1 year deal, um, you know what he's capable of, sure, but you've also seen the last few seasons and you know what he's done, but you don't really know what Justin Fields could be because you haven't really tapped into his potential. I don't think we've really seen the best of Justin Fields. We've seen games that are the best of Justin Fields, I think. We've had games in Chicago where A guy almost runs for 200 yards and pass for almost 200 as well. Like I think we've seen that. I don't think we've really seen the best of Justin Fields as a pure passer, as a pure quarterback. I don't think we've seen that yet. So I don't know what's going to happen here in Pittsburgh between Russell and Fields. Like I want Russ to succeed, yes, but I really think Justin Fields has earned that job. I really think he deserves that job. And I don't really know why Pittsburgh's going to try and flip the gun here. Now, if you're looking at like Cleveland, we get into that other spot here about the coaching carousel. Cleveland needs to make the switch to even, I don't even know if their season's savable by now. I mean, also too, you're in the span of your career where you just trade away Amari Cooper that part of the season. So I mean, you're not really playing for this year anyway. So why not make the move for Jameis Winston? I don't think Deshaun Watson, that quarterback that we all want to see from Houston's going to be around. I don't think he's there. The lights are on, but nobody's home. I think that's Deshaun Watson right now. That's the mental state, and that's where it's been ever since he got to Cleveland. Like it's not even the same player that they traded for and gave over $200 million guaranteed to. Like it's so bad to watch the guy play. You almost feel bad for him, even though all that's gone on off the field. You think that it's almost like watching a pitcher, I think. Um, the analogy in my head I'm thinking of is like the pitcher that has an injury, like Tommy John, and they're not the same anymore. Kind of like I think to me it feels like a guy when I was growing up was Tim Lincecum was a big one. Is like yeah, he's just not the same anymore. Matt Harvey, we had a few years of really good play. He gets hurt and he comes back and it's not the same player and it never will be the same player again. But people are always on check to see if that player will ever come back and give us a glimmer of hope again. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to do that for Cleveland. I really don't think so. I think it's kind of and they're stuck. I think that Cleveland at least goes in this offseason looking for sure at a quarterback if they're going to pick in the top 10. If that's Shador Sanders, if that's Carson Beck, if that's Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, like there's a bunch of guys there you could think of. Um, I think Cleveland needs to officially move on from Deshaun at some point, and they're gonna try and get their money's worth at any time now. But like, why not throw in Jameis for the second half of a game, just see what happens, or um, see what happens for a game. You're 1-5. Nothing's gonna change unless they're waiting for a bye week, and then they're gonna make the move coming out of the bye week and give Jameis a full maybe a week or two to be fully prepared as being the starting quarterback. Um, I don't really know how that works out for them, but I think both Cleveland's making the wrong move by sticking with their guy, and I think Pittsburgh's making the wrong move by not sticking with their guy in Justin Fields. Looking at the NFL trade deadline, going to transition a little bit here. It's coming up here soon, the end of the month. But we've seen Devontae Adams and we've seen Amari Cooper go and find places. Is it a hot take, I think, to say that I think Amari Cooper is going to have a bigger impact in Buffalo than Devontae Adams will in New York? I don't know if Devontae Adams really changes the course of the Jets franchise. I don't really know if that does anything for them. I think Buffalo getting an arm is huge for them, and I think Amari Cooper is the perfect fit for the way Josh Allen wants to run that offense. But Aaron's 41, and Devontae is 32, 33. I might be wrong on the age there, but Devontae's an aging horse, 31 years old, I think he is. But um, Aaron's been around the block. Devontae's been around the block now, and it's like an old reunion where you get divorced, people get divorced, then they come back together and reconcile, and they realize that they, should never gotten divorced. But I think in this situation, it's not going to work out the way everyone wants it to. I think it's going to be, um, it'll be fine. New York will get a bolstered offensive, production maybe from Garrett Wilson. I think Devontae Adams might be the guy that is the microwave option for the Jets, whereas he's good at fresh out of the box. He's excited to play there. They win a few games right away. But long term wise, I don't know what the Jets are going to do because they're going to pay Devontae Adams 34 million next year. What that is going to do for them. But I think Amari Cooper is going to make a big impact in Buffalo more than I think Devontae will in New York because I just think that um, Amari at this point in his career is better suited to be a carry a workload kind of receiver than Devontae is at this point in his career and where Aaron's at in this point in his career. Josh Allen, I think, knows now that the East could be theirs again. And the AFC Championship could be have their name on it once again. They make this move to maybe bolster themselves and give them a real shot that they feel can be really competitive going into that era of the season. I mean, it's getting to that point where teams are gonna maybe get a little more bold than they would like to be. Like what the Vikings are gonna do anything. I don't know. If I don't really know if you want to rock the boat. Do any of these teams really want to rock the boat? Um, but on the flip side of things, if you don't rock the boat, you feel as if you're one player away from doing something big, where that's where Buffalo thinks they are. And apparently, it's where, oh, excuse me, it's where New York feels they are at. And they will head now into the same kind of spot this season, trying for different outcomes. That's where that is going to be at as we head past the trade deadline. We'll see if more guys get moved. Some teams might be feel a little inclined to do something if Kansas City wants to go out and make Mike Williams a deal. They the Jets said that he was up for his services are up for sale. Kansas City, I think, needs to get a receiver. I think they need to get somebody. Xavier Worthy's good and it's solid. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's a whole different player when he's in that offense. I don't know what it is about it, but they use him perfectly the way he's supposed to be used. But I think they could use one more guy or one more receiver to really bolster that offense and give him Pat Mahomes another weapon. I don't really know who that is, if that's gonna be a star-studded receiver or more so like a fringe starter. Um, I'm not really sure. We'll see what teams maybe lose here the next week or two, and that might change the course. Like you might get a team like New England that wants to be like, you know what, Demario Douglas, we love you, but we're looking to rebuild past this 1 year, and we're gonna let you go. Or Jacksonville with Gabe Davis or Calvin Ridley. It's like some of those guys, they might not be the same. Actually, Calvin Ridley's in Tennessee, but Gabe Davis, I think, is one, or Christian Kirk. They might be like, we'll just take this pick and do it for next year, and bon voyage. So I don't know what's going to happen here for Jacksonville or for teams like those, Jacksonville, New England, but Kansas City more so I'm thinking about they need to get one more guy, I think, come for the trade deadline. And now it's time for our weekly segment of our picks. Last week was a good week for me. In the spread, straight up games, I got all of them right. Every single game right, then in the straight up. The spread, we got every game right except for Seattle did not cover against the 49ers. The Commanders did not cover the Ravens by just 1 point. And that's it, my friends. Just two wrong picks of the week. So we're feeling pretty good coming to this week here again on ESPN's Pigskin Pick'em. We're going to start off here on our Thursday night game where the Broncos are taking on the Saints, and the Broncos being 1.5 point favorites. The Broncos at 3-3, the Saints at 2-4. The Saints have dropped the last four. And it appears to be another week for Spencer Rattler to start for New Orleans. Surprisingly, I think I'm going to take New Orleans in both the spread and the straight up. And here's why. I think Bo Nix is going to have a performance that's going to be affected by the home field advantage that is in the Superdome. New Orleans has one of the best home field advantages in football. That I think is going to become evident tonight for the rookie figuring it all out. If he was an experienced player, I'd say differently, but I just have a hunch that New Orleans needs to get a game back too. You can't lose four straight and expect to be just fine with your season. I think New Orleans will cover this game 1.5 points, take them in the spread and in the straight up. I think we got one more London game on our hands before it all comes back to the States. It's the Patriots and the Jaguars, combined record of 2-10. It's kind of like the toilet bowl. It's kind of like the worst matchup maybe of the season. But it's Drake May in London for his second career start, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are 5.5 point favorites. I don't think I'm going to take Jacksonville because I don't think a team at 1-5 deserves a 5.5 point spread. Yeah, it's like, call me weird, but I think this game could be a crapshoot that ends in a game-winning field goal or a game-winning something. I'm still going to take New England in the straight up. I think Drake May had a good performance last week, turned the ball over a few times, but could just lose that and might change the way that they play. New England is going to be taking the straight up at 5.5 point underdogs. Take them in the straight up and in the spread as well. On to the noon slate of games. Our first one is Seattle and Atlanta. In Atlanta, Seattle started out 3-0. They've dropped their last three. The Falcons are 3.5 point favorites at home. I think they're going to carry the spread. I'm taking the Falcons in the straight up and the spread. Kirk Cousins is looking like a solid quarterback now. He's getting his weapons used. Bijan Robinson's being used fully here. Drake London, Darnell Mooney. You got guys who are being used all over the field. Falcons are looking good right now. They're 4-2. I'm gonna think they're gonna be 5-2 after this week. They're gonna cover the spread and they will take that one straight up as well. Now the Buffalo Bills taking on the Tennessee Titans. I remember that said the Titans were kind of in the crapshoot. Buffalo, I think is gonna win this one straight up. That's probably the easiest pick of the week. But 8.5 point spread. I mean, we'll see if Will Levis plays okay. If not, like Mason Rudolph, maybe get some action there. But Buffalo looks good enough to cover this spread. It's why I'm going to take them in the spread as well. Buffalo in the straight up and in the spread. They're just playing too well right now, and Tennessee is just not that good of a football team at the moment. Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns, the battle of the Ohio teams. I just mentioned how bad it was with Deshaun Watson right now. It's not going to get better unless they bench him. I don't really feel like I'm going to take Cincinnati in the straight up in this one. I'm also going to take them in the spread at 4.5 points. Cincinnati needs to get back on track, and this feels like an easy win, I guess, in a sense for them. But Burrow's going to have a solid game, I think. I think Jamar Chase could have a nice game as well. Balanced running game with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. But I'm going to take the Bengals straight up, and I'll take them in the spread at 4.5 point favorites. This is probably, I think, one of the best games of the week. You got Houston Texans taking on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are 2.5 point favorites at home, and they've played well. They really have played well when Jordan Love is in that quarterback. But Houston, except for the game in Minnesota, are pretty much a perfect 5-0 team. They're 5-1 in the season. Like I said, that one game against Minnesota just did not look like them at all. I'm going to go Houston here. I think Houston is the 2.5 point underdog. Houston is a team that is hard to beat, especially when they're on their game. I think this is going to be a game where CJ Stroud can really shut up the haters about in Lambeau Field, that he can go in and win on the road. Not having Nico Collins might affect things, but I think that leads to Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs stepping up as well as Joe Mixon, like we saw last week. Houston in the spread, Houston in the straight up. They will cover that 2.5 point spread as underdogs. Next game we got on our hands is the Miami Dolphins taking on the Indianapolis Colts. It's in Indianapolis where they are 3.5 point favorites. Indy to me feels like a very question mark team. I think the one thing I'd probably way to signify their year is question mark. I don't really know what's going on for them. And Miami, it's Tyler Huntley starting again for them. I mean, I kind of feel the same way with Miami like I do Cleveland. As long as Tua's not playing, it's not going to be a great team to watch for them. Indianapolis, at least you have Anthony Richardson. He's going to start this week. I'm going to take the Colts at home. I'm going to take them in the straight up. I'm going to take them in the spread at 3.5 points. I think Indianapolis is a solid team when they're at full strength. When you have Michael Pittman playing all the way, Jonathan Taylor's not hurt. Defensively, they have some good guys there on the defensive side of the ball. Indy's not a bad team. They just need to get a game back here, get back over 500, which I think they will. They'll take the 3.5 point spread, and I will take them in the straight up and the spread as well. Next game we have on the noon slot is probably, I think, the game of the week. I know I just said that earlier about Houston and Green Bay, but I think this one is the best game of the week. Detroit Lions at 2.5 point underdogs traveling to Minnesota, take on the Minnesota Vikings, who are fresh off the bye. I'm going to ride the wagon until the wheels come off. I think Minnesota is going to take this one in the spread at 2.5 point favorites at home. I think they're going to take this one in the straight up as well. I won't doubt them until someone beats them. Now, if Detroit beats them this week, they'll fall back to earth a little bit for me. Detroit might be the best team in the North. But by record-wise, Minnesota is the best team by North. I'm going to take them in this one, 2.5 point favorites in this one, and I'll take them in the straight up as well. Great division battle here at the other noon game. The Philadelphia Eagles will be taking on the New York Giants, where the Eagles are 3.5 point favorites going into the Meadowlands. Eagles are playing pretty solid right now. The Giants are playing okay. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to cover this spread here at 3.5 point favorites. They'll go into New York, take care of business. They need a really solid game that they kind of dominate for, and this is the team to do it against. Philadelphia is going to be the 4-2 after this game here. I think they're going to take them in the straight up, and I'll take them in the spread. Bit of a confusing game here at 305 with the Raiders and the Rams. The Rams are at 1-4. The Raiders are at 2-4. But both teams, I think, have looked pretty ugly. But I think the Rams have played pretty solid teams for them, and they've played pretty well for being banged up for most of the time, for not having the squad and the guys they want. They're still not having Cooper Kupp's questionable this week, but Puka Nakua's still not playing. I mean, they're missing dudes. They're missing guys. But I think Kyron Williams going to have a big game for them against this Raiders defense. I know they have a good edge rushers there and Max Crosby, but I think that the Rams are going to take this one, 5.5 point spread favorites. I'll take them in the straight up, and I'll take them in the spread. Next 305 game we have here is the Carolina Panthers taking on the Washington Commanders. Now I'm going to take the Commanders in the straight up. It's going to be a good game for them. They're 4-2. I think about to be 5-2. Carolina on the year, I think it's going to have a really solid game, be back and forth, evenly matched here. I think Andy Dalton's going to have a bounce back game for him. Didn't play the greatest last week. But Carolina, I think, will lose this one maybe by 5 or 6, not 7.5. I just think that the Commanders will take this one in the straight up, but Carolina's going to cover the spread. Now, the Fox game of the week here is Kansas City Chiefs taking on the San Francisco 49ers, but the 49ers are favorited by 1.5 points. If Christian McCaffrey was playing, if George Kittle was fully healthy, if Deebo Samuel was fully healthy, I'd probably take the Niners in a heartbeat. But again, no one has beaten the Chiefs this season. They're 5-0. They're resilient. I'm going to take the Chiefs in the straight up, and I'm going to take them in the spread at 1.5 point underdogs because I really just have to acknowledge and respect the fact that Patrick Mahomes is the best player on the planet in terms of football. And um, this is one where Kansas City is, I think, is going to pull away and show the world they're still the best in the way. And if you want to win a game or want to go through a title game, it's going to have to come through Arrowhead. So Sunday Night Football, the New York Jets taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jets are 0.5 point favorites in this one, according to ESPN's Pigskin Pick'em. And I said Devontae Adams is the microwave solution to this squad. And I think that's going to happen this week. They're going to win this week as well. I think Russell Wilson's going to be a little shaky in his first start of the season, but Devontae Adams will hit his stride here with Aaron Rodgers come the first game. The Jets, I just think, are one of the better teams when they fully all going together. When Breece Hall's going, when they're all working together and it's solid. And I think Devontae Adams will help that instantly right away. Jets are going to take this one. I'm taking them in the straight up and in the spread as well. And back to 2 Monday Night Football games this week. The first one, the Ravens taking on the Buccaneers. Both teams at 4-2, but Tampa Bay right now played a solid game last week against New Orleans. And Baltimore again is playing solid as well. I think the running game for Baltimore is going to be too much to handle for the Buccaneers defense. Ravens are going to take this one in the straight up and take them in the spread as well. I think Tampa Bay right now is just not where they want to be to play against Baltimore. They had a good week last week, but it was New Orleans. It's a little different story. But I think the Ravens are just playing really solid football right now. They're one of the better teams when they're all clicking together, just like the Jets, I say. They're going to take this one in the straight up in the spread. And the final Monday Night Football game of the week at 8 o'clock is the LA Chargers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Chargers are 2.5 point favorites, but they're in Arizona now. I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to play this week for Arizona. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Arizona is going to take this one in the straight up in the spread. Kyler Murray's been playing really solid, especially if he's able to scramble out of the pocket. He's going to be able to use his weapons here. It's in Arizona. They would like to get a game here. LA could maybe fall back to 500 at 3-3. I think Arizona's a really solid team. I think that they have a chance to be one of the better teams in a few years when they get this thing back together and back on the tracks. But for right now, they're still kind of figuring out where they want to be identity-wise. But what starts at that is the quarterback position, and Kyler Murray's played pretty solid, I think, this season. I think he's going to take this one this week. A little bit of an upset there. I think the Cardinals are going to take the straight up and the spread. So that's our weekly pig segment here. From Cameron Green on the Green Zone Podcast, our weekly picks. We'll see how we did. I'll report back next week and see how we did. But for those watching, I want to thank you for watching episode 7 of the Green Zone Podcast. We'll be back here next week for episode 8, for a full 2 months of podcasts under our belt here. But from Cameron Green signing off here from the College of St. Scholasticus Media Studio and our Green Zoners out there. Thanks for watching, guys.